Welcome, educators. I am so incredibly glad you're joining me for this explainer today. We are going to be zooming in on a truly powerful tool in our Science of Reading toolkit, the letter Q, which stands for question frames and techniques. Cultivating curiosity is really at the very heart of what we do as teachers. So let's just dive right in and explore how we can use questioning, not just to check the box for understanding, but to ignite some genuine, exciting inquiry in our classrooms. I actually want to kick things off by asking you to think about a pretty big question. What happened to our students' questions? Think about it. Children are naturally inquisitive, right? They come into this world asking why the sky is blue, or, what would happen if the moon just disappeared? They're basically born wondering, always trying to make sense of the world around them. But somewhere along the line, a lot of children actually learn to stop asking questions. In more traditional schooling setups, students were often expected to just sit quietly and, receive information. Sometimes, if they asked a few too many questions, it was even seen as an interruption. And over time, they kind of learned that school wasn't always the place for their curiosity. And honestly, that's a huge problem we need to solve. I was actually just thinking about this the other day. My grandson, Amir, came over to visit. I was in the kitchen cooking, and Amir was hanging out nearby, just full of that incredible wild fourth-grade imagination. Out of nowhere, I hear him ask, "Alexa, what kind of game should I create for Capital Ship Star Wars?" I literally stopped what I was doing. I had to pause because I was listening to the question behind the question. He wasn't looking for a simple yes or no. He was creating. He was designing. And then he just kept going with these amazing follow-up questions. What should happen if the capital ship gets attacked? How can I make the game harder? What should the final battle be? He was deeply, deeply thinking and imagining an entire world from scratch. Listening to Amir, I couldn't help but wonder, what would our classrooms feel like if students felt safe enough to ask their teachers questions with that exact same level of raw curiosity? What if, instead of just expecting kids to answer our questions all day, we actually welcomed their wonder? What if we stretched their thinking and connected those high-level complex questions directly to what they were learning? A classroom that doesn't shut down questions, but actually uses them to explore even further. Now that is the kind of classroom that grows real thinkers. Okay, moving to section 1. What exactly are question frames? Well, to really get this, we kind of have to shift our mindset a bit. We have to remember that questioning isn't just a sneaky technique to check if our students actually did the reading. It is a vital, non-negotiable way to engage them in active learning. It's how we move them from passive listeners to active thinkers. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the most foundational concepts in the entire science of reading. Reading is thinking. When it comes to literacy instruction, students absolutely must move beyond simply decoding the words on the page. They have to think about the text. They need to analyze the author's choices, the structure, the vocabulary, and dig into that deeper meaning. But to do all of that, they need the right tools. Which brings us right to question frames. By definition, question frames are language structures that literally make thinking visible. You see, a lot of times kids really do want to engage, but they just don't know where to begin. These frames give them the actual language for thinking. For example, giving them a frame like, "What does X mean?" or "What's the difference between X and Y?" or even, "What evidence supports this?" Giving them these frames is so incredibly powerful because it provides a clear, safe structure for discussion, for writing, and for reflection. It helps us move them way, way beyond those basic one-word answers. Now, when we look at the questions we're asking in class, we can break them down into a few different types to make sure we're building a truly rich environment. We have literal questions, asking them to find information right there in the text. Inferential questions, where they use clues plus their own brain power. Evaluative questions force them to make judgments and defend their opinions. Analytical questions have them breaking ideas apart to see how they connect. And finally, reflective questions, which ask them to think about their own process as a reader. All of these matter so much because our kids desperately need opportunities to flex their thinking muscles at all of these different levels. So, on to section 2, why questioning deepens comprehension. Let's talk about why all of this actually matters for student success and their overall reading development. Quick question for you. Who should be asking the questions in class? We usually think it's us, the teachers, right? And yes, students should definitely be asking questions to the teacher. And absolutely, they should be asking questions to each other. But here is the real magic. Students must learn to ask questions to themselves as readers. When a student reads and asks themselves, "Wait, what confused me here?" Or "What is the author actually trying to teach me?" That's when they begin monitoring their own comprehension. They stop treating reading like a chore to just get through, and they start reading actively. So the huge takeaway here is that strong questioning gives kids a real reason to pay attention, to wonder, and to genuinely interact with the text. It pulls them out of that basic literal recall zone and pushes them into much deeper critical thinking. It is how they take true ownership of their own learning. All right, section 3, strategies for the classroom. Now that we know the why, let's get into the how. What does this actually look like during your whole group lessons or small group instruction?
First up is an oldie but a goodie, wait time. Listen, a classroom that is rich in questioning does not mean the teacher is just firing off question after question while kids sit there hoping not to get called on. When we rush through questioning, we are really only benefiting the absolute fastest thinkers in the room. Slowing down, that is how we invite everybody to the table.
Honestly, sometimes the absolute best thing you can do after asking a really great question is just pause. Give them time. Let them process it. Let them reread if they need to. Just let them think. And once you've given them that pause, techniques like turn and talk become total game changers. Giving students a minute to chat with a partner, pull out text evidence, and explain their reasoning out loud, it creates this incredibly necessary safe space for deeper thinking before they ever have to raise their hand in front of the whole room.
But we must always keep our eyes on the prize, student-generated questions. The ultimate goal isn't just for us to become master question askers. The goal is to build an environment, using tools like discussion circles or exit tickets, where our students are the ones generating their own text-dependent, reflective questions. Section 4, Teacher Reflection Time. I want us to take just a quick, quiet moment to bring all of this together and connect it right back to your own day-to-day teaching. Really think about this for your own classroom tomorrow. How can you create more space in your lessons for students to ask questions rather than just answering yours? What is one small idea, maybe one question frame, or one technique that you can try out to welcome that curiosity back into your room? And finally, section 5, opening new doors. As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want you to leave feeling inspired about the massive power you hold to completely shift the conversation in your classroom. My grandson Amir reminded me that kids already know how to wonder. They just need us to provide classrooms where that wonder is welcomed and stretched. So I will leave you with this beautiful thought right from the text. When students learn how to ask questions, they learn how to open doors for themselves. So I've got to ask you, what door will your students open tomorrow because of a question you empowered them to ask?